Happy Venus Day, collective. Happy solstice. Happy full strawberry moon in Capricorn. We had the moon go full, technically, I want to say 9:07 p.m. here on the east coast of the United States. So we are well into the full strawberry moon. And I wanted to do a nice little fun outdoor collective message, see what comes up. The energies, well, intuitively, I guess you might say, I pick up on sort of, it's not exactly like the most lighthearted full moon, but that's because, as I've mentioned before in these videos, that's because when you're looking at any event, so lunation, and we're looking at the sign in which it occurs, we look at the ruling planet of that sign to see where it is and what it's doing, to get sort of like the underlying current of the event at hand. So in this case, the full strawberry moon. So it being at the first degree of Capricorn, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and you know, Saturn is not the most forgiving of planets, and it was, as you might recall watching, if you saw my last video I posted, quite lengthy, but I do think it's worth it in terms of getting the post-eclipse debriefing. Saturn was essentially a big factor in the last, in the whole eclipse season, because it's been in Pisces, and Saturn in Pisces has essentially been like a slow and sometimes a painful process of disillusionment, you might say. So yes, while the Libra lunar eclipse in March was ruled by Venus, which was in Pisces, it was also co-present with Saturn in Pisces. So you got to kind of look at the combined energy of those two things, as well as Neptune being the very end of Pisces. And so then when the Aries total solar eclipse came around in April, and then we had to go to see what Mars was doing, as we would, since Mars rules Aries. Well, Mars was in Pisces at that time, and guess what else was again still there? Saturn, along with Neptune. So in this case, we are just looking at Capricorn because that's simply where the moon is. But Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So while we don't have Mars or Pisces in Saturn anymore, they've long since passed. Mars is currently in Taurus, and Venus is currently in Cancer here on this full first official day of Cancer season with the sun. So Venus, Mercury, and the sun are all currently in Cancer, but Saturn is in Capricorn, or I'm sorry, in Pisces. And so therefore this Capricorn full moon is ruled by Saturn in Pisces. And Saturn is kind of father time, and the planet that sort of you might say is attached to karma, and karma in the sense of just the natural consequence of prudent or imprudent action over a period of time. So if you want to get the flavor more specific to the themes in your life, you would look at the axis of Cancer and Capricorn in your chart to see the houses where this energy is playing out. And so I think that you'll find that Capricorn being an earth energy, it's cardinal earth. If you're combining the idea of prudent or imprudent action over time, and maybe you're not happy with like what you have to show for your life, or you're dissatisfied in any way with that. I mean, who isn't, to an extent? it's really a time to just not beat yourself up, but to really sit and contemplate, like, well, what could I do? What little thing could I do going forward to work towards a life that I envision for myself? And, because that's the thing. Saturn doesn't make value judgments. It just, it's the planet that will delay gratification but never deny. I always say Saturn delays, but it never denies. So it's never too late to start taking little steps, as Capricorn energy does. Slow and steady wins the race would be the, I guess, the theme of Capricorn. And if you want to liken it to a tarot card, you would often, yes, it's associated with the devil because it can represent obsessive energy. But I mean, in terms of the slow and steady wins the race, like slow gains built with purpose over time, that's kind of like the Knight of Pentacles energy. And the Knight of Pentacles might not move fast, but the Knight of Pentacles doesn't move backwards. So just stay in the spirit of Capricorn, and regardless of the area of life it governs, just know that any small change that you implement starting tomorrow, the time's going to pass anyway, as I like to remind myself. So don't obsess over timelines, and time's going to pass anyway. So don't be afraid to imagine something better for yourself, and don't be afraid to actually say it out loud to yourself. State an intention and make a small change, and then make another small change. So I want to see what comes out with this solstice energy combined with the full moon energy in Capricorn. And it will be interesting because this full moon being at the very beginning of Capricorn, in exactly 1 month, July 21st, we will have another full moon in Capricorn at the very last degree, 29 degrees. So it's sort of like, it's really interesting in that sense. So maybe state, sort of, or imagine, write down somewhere, like, what it is that you're sort of wanting for yourself. If you've had your chart done, or if you know where Capricorn is, what house, sort of take note of that theme, area of life, and consider what you might like to shape for yourself, and then write it down, and then see where you are mentally in a month from now. See how that full moon energy feels comparatively when you put it at the end of Capricorn. Oh, well, here we go. Success. Bloom wherever you are planted. And then here at the bottom, weed. Don't tolerate less than you deserve. So it's a pretty interesting starting message from our Secret Garden deck. And so if you've read or watched any of the other card pulls, you would know that I like to look at the bottom of the deck as sort of like the underlying energy of, like, sort of, why am I here for this message? So I might start by just saying, okay, well, as a starting point, you might sort of have this underlying idea of you don't want to tolerate certain things anymore. You're kind of coming to the table, so to speak, with the idea of, I don't want to tolerate less than I deserve. You might not have a firm understanding of what that means beyond that, but this would tell me that this is sort of what you're coming to this message with an understanding of, to weed out what no longer serves you, whether it's people, places, things, habits. So I guess we would take this draw as our first message. Success, bloom wherever you're planted. So maybe a message of adaptability, your ability to, with the right frame of mind, see yourself as being able to thrive or succeed wherever. And so, I don't know, I kind of might look at that as also suggesting being open to change. Sometimes the success you've imagined for yourself, you've maybe thought a little bit too small. Maybe you haven't contemplated yourself somewhere else, or reaching higher and more expansively. So it kind of reminds me of I came across like some random tweet the other day, and it has lived rent-free in my head ever since. It was someone quoting their grandma, and this girl tweeted, she said, if familiarity mattered, water wouldn't boil fish. And I just was like, and then like she said, my granny was the attribution. So I don't know, I think I saw it like a week or two ago, and it has just stuck in my mind ever since. It's so simple, but like yeah, that I don't know why it startled me so much, but if familiarity mattered, water wouldn't boil fish. So I don't know, I'm interested to see if that comes up in some way with the cards that come out. This, as you might remember from the Gemini new moon reading, is the Kim Krantz Archetypes deck. So we're gonna try to get one. If two come out, we'll take it, but I like to keep it kind of focused to where we can really narrow down as much as possible a takeaway you can use, maybe get something from and apply it in these next 2 weeks. All right, let's just go with back 2. Oh, we got 3. All right. We've got the cave. We've got the temple. Interesting, the shapeshifter again. So now I really think you should go back and check out the Gemini new moon reading, because shapeshifter was the underlying energy of the Gemini new moon reading. So we are going to put the cave, the temple, and the shapeshifter here against our pretty pink strawberry moon. Let's see if they're going to stay like that. And at the bottom, the river. Very interesting, because you might have heard me say that when I am likening the water signs to bodies of water, Cancer, us now, of course, solstice marking the entry of the sun into Cancer. Cancer is like the river, the sort of emotions of emotional resilience, because rivers, of course, they keep moving. So you're going to feel all the emotions, but they're going to pass right by you. Whereas in Pisces, where Saturn currently is, the ruler of this Capricorn full moon, Pisces is the ocean of emotions. So it's sort of like the collective emotions, all that exists, sort of lingering there all at once. It's like this formlessness, whereas Cancerian energy is it's more, I guess, resilient. It has it feels the emotions, and then they just wash past in the river. So we've got that as our underlying energy here on this first full day of Cancer season. I find that to be quite appropriate. As far as the shapeshifter goes, and it having been the underlying energy of the Gemini new moon reading, I think that that's really, really interesting, because it's now still making an appearance here in this. And the sun, of course, just moved out of Gemini, moved into Cancer for the solstice, but we do still have Jupiter in Gemini, and that will be there until next summer. So we will go to the guidebooks to get more details on the cards that came out, and I'm going to try to get one alchemy card. I wouldn't have chosen to have 3 come out from the archetypes, but 3 came out, and that was that, so we're going to stick with it. But this is also a Kim Krantz deck, or alchemy deck. It's hard to choose, really, but it might be my favorite deck. see if I can link any themes between these two decks. Sometimes after I do a reading and I go back, there will be things I catch on to that I didn't even pick up right away while I was recording. So I'm going to try to at least sit long enough with these images so that I don't miss any of these connections, but it's like I can't help but find others when I go back, and you know, there we go. Gold. Well, gold is generally associated with the sun, and the sun is the ruling planet of Leo, but it also is the metal associated with I guess technically Cancer right now, because that's where the sun is. So at the bottom we have coagulation as the underlying energy, and I think this has come up in another reading I've done with this alchemy deck. These are sort of speaking to one another in their own right, at least just the colors. Gold and coagulation. So far for underlying, we've got don't tolerate less than you deserve, we've got the river, and we've got coagulation. So let's round it out with our tarot draw. Alright, messages for the solstice and the Capricorn full moon, please. Messages for the solstice and Capricorn full moon, please. Messages for solstice and Capricorn full moon. Okay, first card out. Judgment. Alright. Let me get another 2 cards, please. Judgment is Major Arcana number 20. Also often referred to as awakening. So it's tempting to sort of attach this sort of foreboding, like, oh, the final judgment. It's more practically, I think it manifests as like an epiphany, like sort of a self-awareness, a sort of self-inventory where you essentially are declaring what it is that you do want and what you don't want for yourself anymore. It's a really nice precursor to making some changes in your life, you might say. Before you change course, you first sort of have to awaken to the current state and go from there. So, there we go. One on the ground, and look at this. What a nice follow-up. The Magician. Major Arcana number 1. Very interesting. Okay, let's try to get another one. 2 Major Arcana. All right, and a third. 2 of of Pentacles. All right. What's that? The bottom, we've got Eight of Swords. Okay. I see. I see. Here we go. So take a good look. I don't know. This is a pretty good, yes, this is the Aquarian Tarot deck, but while some of the cards differ from the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, this is pretty much the same that you're going to see on the Rider-Waite-Smith. You've got the Eight of Swords. It's, as you can see, is one person standing here with a blindfold on, surrounded by swords. So this here is associated with the air signs of Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, thoughts, communications. And as you can see, this person is bound, has a blindfold, but this person is not surrounded. This person is not in prison. This person is standing alone in a prison of their own making. And this is the underlying energy of the tarot here. So this is suggesting sort of when you know that you've got a sort of, you're in this perpetual loop, because an 8 is like a lemniscat. It's, in fact, it is what you see above the Magician's head right here. You might call it the infinity loop, or the lemniscat. And this Eight of Swords represents sort of stuck in an energy in perpetuity. And in this case, it would be your thoughts. But it would be also a state that only you can get out of, because this is a person, again, standing alone, and they can remove this blindfold at any point. It's almost sort of, you might look at this as just too afraid to move in any direction, too afraid to change your thoughts. You sort of know that the old way wasn't doing it, but you don't know where to start. So to review, we've got our underlying energies all sort of starting to speak to one another here. Don't tolerate less than you deserve. We've got the River, which we will go to the guidebook for more information on. We've got Coagulation. We've got this Eight of Swords. And then we'll go into this whole message a little more right off the bat. I see, of course, like I said, Major Arcana number 20, Judgment, so awakening. So while this is the underlying energy, these are the cards that came out, which suggests you might even sort of have one foot in and one foot out from this underlying state. This is sort of like a both and place that you might find yourself in, one foot in your old life and one foot sort of like out of it, but not quite standing on the new ground, if that makes sense. But there has been an awakening. You're like, okay, change is needed. Like, as my last video is titled, The Old King is Dead, Long Live the King. But we're still trying to figure out, like, what is the new king? We're still trying to figure out, what is this Ace of Swords? Or what is our new truth? And we got our Magician. Now, the Magician, one of my favorite cards, the Magician has every tool at his disposal. The thing about the Magician, he's a one-man show. And on his table, he's got a chalice or a cup, and he's got a sword, and he's got a rod or a wand, and he's got a pentacle. So the energy, he's got everything he needs at his disposal. This is the manifestation card. It's sort of like, I can do anything, and I've got all the energies available to me. But then here, we've got our Two of Pentacles. We, again, still can't quite figure out what to do with that. This suggests like a balancing act. The Two of Pentacles is a really interesting card because while this isn't exactly like the Rider-Waite-Smith illustration, and again, we have another appearance of the lemniscat. So this suggests also being stuck in sort of a perpetual motion of a balancing act of your two pentacles, your two coins. So it could mean a balancing of resources, like limited resources, and you've got this delicate balance. Like I got my expenditures here and these here, and like this doesn't seem sustainable, but I'm sustaining it barely, but it's not exactly equal. It's sort of one side's higher, one side's lower. And then in the back, there's water in the background. So anytime you see water in a tarot card, that brings in emotions. But this character's back is turned to that. And the waters are not calm. Like the waters are wavy. In the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith card, you even see boats, like one like at the like top of the wave, like at the crest, and then another boat. It's quite obviously way more unsettled looking water by virtue of the placement of the boats in the background. But in this case, you still see this is not a state of ease and sustainability. This is like, even the person's face looks like, oh Lord, how long can I keep up this balancing act? I've only got these 2 pentacles, and so whether you're looking at this as money or your energetic resources, like how you're dividing up, this could be like work and family. This is sort of like, I've got the balance going, but just barely. And like, you know, the purposefulness of having that lemniscat there, it shows that you're stuck in the loop. Like you can't quite get out of this balancing act, but you know it's not sustainable. Like, you know you deserve more. You're the whole don't tolerate less than you deserve. The look on your face here suggests that you know that you deserve better, and that you've got to get out of this sort of like perpetual balancing act of these 2 measly pentacles. We need more resources, because what I've got going on here, I feel stuck. So I mean, it's funny because we've got the lemniscat present in both of these, and then of course just the energy of the 8, except when it comes to thoughts, what's going on in your head. So I think that jumps out to me right off the bat. But again, we have judgment. We have this awakening. This is good news. This is like, all right, well, we know something big is happening. Like, we have awoken from our slumber of the old way, and we're not quite in the new phase, but we know that we can't stay in the old one. So let's go on to these guidebooks. And we're going to start with the underlying energy of the river, and see what we can tie together here. The river. The stream, the flow, the current. There is a reason so many rituals of change and rebirth take place in the river. It is forgiveness embodied in physical form. Without asking anything in return, the river washes away what is no longer necessary, smoothing over sharp edges and accepting all our mistakes and grievances. Once we step in, we are no longer in control. The river carries us farther down the stream of transformation than we planned to go. Its waters have a special gift for reflecting back to us a new and dreamlike vision. Once the tears have passed, we see ourselves as we haven't before, with a little more lightness, grace, and fluidity. Keep in mind, the you that stands within the river is the real you, full of deep emotion and potential, nothing to hide, nothing to judge. May you drink in the sight of your true self. When light, the energy of the river is acceptance, grace, reflection, and forgiveness. When dark or distorted, the energy of the river is torment of emotions, flooding, and overwhelm. And as a side note, the river is emotion. When you're in its current, you will know it by the bursting forth of tears, laughter, song, despair. All the emotions flow in its current. And you'll notice here is the Cancerian glyph. So, again, here we are, the first full day of Cancer season, the sun, the gold, you might say, being in the Cancerian waters, the river. You can only resist the river for so long. Eventually it will pull you toward change, so you may as well get in with style and grace. So let's go back to the strange tweet that I saw If familiarity mattered, water wouldn't boil fish. So I'm just going to sit here with this underlying energy. Here we are in the river. We're understanding, it seems like we are coming to this reading with an understanding of the change that we are undergoing. We are sort of like, have surrendered ourselves to the spirit of Cancer season, according to the energy that's on the table. And so we're going to go, and I think maybe we're going to go to the cave first. The cave is actually 2 pages before. It's very close in its placement in this book. So let's get a look at the imagery too of the cave. It's dark, and we've got this set of hands, and it's like, there's like this one light shining though, and I'm almost like looking at it, and I'm just like, for some reason this image is resonating. Like I see this circle down here, and then I see these beams, and I see this, and it's almost like I can imagine this being what's deep, like the light kind of waiting to emerge from this cave. That's sort of the imagery that I'm getting. So we'll see. We'll see what it says here. Put this up front since we're reading it. The cave. The dark, the portal, the interior. Those who are fortunate enough to find and enter the cave are forever changed. It is a place of potent power, acting both as portal to another realm and a space for sacred ritual and initiation. The cave is a place to return for meaningful retreat, where one can see the true self in the darkness. In esoteric teachings, the cave is known to reside in the center of the heart. Within its walls, the whispers of compassion and self-understanding can be heard. Yet because of its mystery and power, many of us fear the cave and never try to find it. We busy ourselves in the bright lights of the city while the cavernous and dimly lit chamber calls out to us in the night. Where is your cave? You already know. Return to it and tend the fire. Again, I'm getting the imagery of, especially the mention of the heart. And when I look at just the symbolic representation of gold being associated with the sun, and the sun being Leo, Leo being associated with the heart, and sort of it shines like the sun is your like your inner gold. You may have heard the reference to your inner gold, like your sort of your true essence, your most precious essence, that sometimes you find it's like too much for you to like radiate out into the world, and so you keep it hidden, or you try to find someone else to like hold it for you, you might say. It's like look up it's like psychologist Robert Johnson. He has this whole really eloquent take on like your inner gold. It's a really fascinating treatment of like the idea of like your, whether you call it a godlike quality or your the most precious thing within you, how some people find it too much to carry themselves, and so they go looking for someone else, whether it be like in a romantic relationship or like through children, like looking for someone else to offload it on, almost because it's like they somehow understand like the preciousness of it, and if they have a distorted view of themselves and like almost see themselves as unworthy, it's like that instinct that makes them desperate to find someone else to hold it for them. Look it up if you're interested. It's Robert Johnson, Inner Gold. I'm pretty sure there's some videos on YouTube. So again, I'm like looking at this and I'm thinking of that that inner gold quality, and like it's sort of like shining dimly in the recesses of the cave right here. Return to it and tend the fire. When light, the sacred center within. When dark or distorted, withdrawal, isolation, and hiding. Envision yourself as an old sage in a cave. What amenities do you need? What draws you even closer to the cave within the cave? Slowly and steadily, crystals of enormous magnitude grow within the dark confines of caves. Let the cave teach you patience. So I'm immediately getting, going back to the archetypal energy of Saturn, which is ruling this full moon in Capricorn, and then the archetypal energy of Capricorn. And Capricorn it's the energy that gets us through the winter. It's cardinal earth. It's it rations. It makes sure that there are enough resources to get everyone through the cold winter until the spring bulbs emerge, till we have our next cardinal energy of Aries. And I really think it's interesting here that the ending thought, talking about the slow and steady growth of the crystals of enormous magnitude, and they grow within the dark. So it suggests that there's something really productive that happens inside of the cave, and that it might not be visible, whether it's because it's dark in the confines of the cave. You can barely even see the glow of this like gold, or your inner gold or light, but also because of the pace. It's so slow to where you might, even if you were right up face to face, be tricked into thinking nothing's happening. But yet that's not the case. Sometimes the things of greatest magnitude only come about as a result of slow and steady growth that might not even be visible on a day-to-day basis to you. So let's sit with that energy of the cave. Very Saturnian, very Capricorn. Let's go to the temple. And I think it'll be interesting to end on the shapeshifter, because keeping in mind that that was the bottom of the deck card for the Gemini new moon. So like I said, let's go to the temple since we haven't seen that one yet. The temple, the sanctuary, the shrine, the altar. When we think of the temple, we often envision an architectural structure in a far-off land. We are quick to distance ourselves from the sacred, assuming we must expend much effort in order to arrive there. Yet the temple is a universal and omnipresent energy, accessible in the highest and lowest, richest and poorest of places. Visiting the temple might be as simple as stepping into the dappled light of the forest, slowly and sensuously kissing a lover, or closing your eyes to travel inward. This card is a call to re-examine what you pay homage to and what you reject. What do you spend your time worshiping? Your phone, money, material goods? What barriers do you draw between yourself and the sacred? Perhaps there is room on your altar for something new, something surprising. Offer it to the heavens. When light, this energy is reverence for all, life as sanctuary. When dark, idolatry, cults, strict spirituality. Though indeed the temple travels with you, this card is interwoven with the pilgrim archetype. If you've been longing for a spiritual journey, book your tickets. The ancient yogis saw the body itself as the temple, every function and feature of it as an expression of divinity. Build a shrine with found materials. Don't spend any money, only time. Don't spend any money, only time. And then when I go to the dark or distorted manifestation of this energy, idolatry, cults, strict spirituality. And then I think of Saturn in Pisces and the combined energy of Neptune, the planet of illusion, creativity and ideals, yes, and in ways romanticism, which can become itself distorted into delusion, like rose-colored glasses type romanticism. And those energies in Pisces, that is definitely Saturn traveling through, sort of stripping away the veil that a really strong presence of Neptune in Pisces energy alone might lead you to joining a cult. It's like sort of starts as an ideal and an idea of seeking out this temple, some sort of spiritual journey, and then without the sobriety of Saturn there, you might, before you know it, realize you're in too deep and you don't even, you've gone into a different sort of cave, and one that's not within you. It's sort of, you've been consumed by something else. So I kind of look at like the cave and the temple as like speaking to one another in this reading. These are both cards about discipline. Yes, spiritual discipline, but just more so like taking like an honest inventory of where you are. So we're gonna go bring this guy in here. I kind of see all of these as talking to one another. This sort of assessment, this awakening. And I think that's kind of making this Two of Pentacles and this Eight of Swords make more sense to me now that I think about it. I kind of look at these a little bit. It's like the Magician is here, and maybe you seem intuitively aware, and that's where this shapeshifter is actually going to come in. Now, this is one of those things I might not have picked up on until after the reading, but here we are. These two are very much similar energies. And I'll go to the shapeshifter again and we'll revisit why, but I'm sort of looking at this here now, this Two of Pentacles, and sort of you being aware that despite this awakening here, given everything we've said here about this temple and then this cave, it's almost like you realize that it's not quite time to go to this Magician. Like, whether you're aware of it or not, that you have all the tools at your disposal. Maybe you have a level of self-awareness that you are still here, that you're coming to the table with this energy, and so therefore you're like, I'm just going to keep this delicate balancing act going, finish out my time here in this cave, and I guess in my spiritual journey, finding my temple, even if it's within, and there is a wisdom there. So I mean, again, we're going to finish, we're going to read these two as well as the shapeshifter, but I'm starting to see maybe that whoever this reading is for maybe has a bit of self-awareness about like where they are and what their potential is, but knowing that in order to come out of the cave, to build something up correctly, given the energy of Saturn ruling this Capricorn full moon, maybe you are more aware than these cards seem to indicate, or that I might guess, that it's not quite time to act. Like, it's not quite time for manifestation because we want to build something solid that will last. And in order to do that, we kind of gotta finish up matters here. So I'll put this guy back here and we will read this shapeshifter card and revisit where we were. I guess that would be June 6th. So if you can take a little jog back to June 6th in your memory right now and consider if what I'm about to read might have described your underlying energy at that moment. The shapeshifter. The trickster, the elusive, the formless. The shapeshifter has a love of theater, games, and trickery. Its energy appears as one thing, only to reveal a more complex story below the surface. The shapeshifter is within all of us to some degree. It is the side of ourselves that is slippery, non-committal, and experimental, and longs to dismiss the rules. We need its energy to adapt to the ever-changing landscape of our existence. When the shapeshifter card appears, it's important to imagine you are looking at life through a kaleidoscope rather than a single focused lens. At any moment, the scene may shift, revealing a more enchanting vision than you imagined. Be wary, though, as the allure of the kaleidoscope can leave you exhausted and yearning for solid ground. Dancing long-term with the shapeshifter requires a central pillar of integrity that links us back to our center. When light, vibrant, adaptive, and humorous. When dark, charlatan, people-pleasing, and trickery. The shapeshifter is related to the mask. Notice if these cards come up together in one reading. If so, you are in the realm of heavy theater, illusion, possibly deception. The ultimate shapeshifter works undercover in service of the greater good. The diminished shapeshifter becomes a people pleaser. So, if you did watch the Gemini new moon reading, you will recall that when we were looking at the energy governing that lunation, the new moon in Gemini, we were looking to Mercury. So Mercury is known as the trickster, ruling planet of Gemini. Mercury was in Gemini, so it was like this doubled up archetypal energy of Gemini. And I remember the sort of takeaway of that reading being to use those 2 weeks, the June 6th leading up till now, as like sort of like an opportunity to for levity, like acknowledging the heavier underlying energies we're all carrying, in the aftermath of the eclipses and the heavy Piscean, like Saturn and Pisces energies, but that the fast pace of Gemini season, where we got our shapeshifter as underlying energy with the very strong energy of Mercury, also in Gemini, that was co-present with, I think, like 4 other planets at that point. So it was sort of like use the Gemini playful energy to get through this time, because even if you're sort of stuck in your thoughts at this point, like before you know it, everything will move right on through into Cancer, where the pace is slower. And this is where we are now. So the fact that the shapeshifter still came out, one, like I said, we do still have Jupiter there, but the sun did just leave Gemini. So now that we're in this underlying energy of the river, some of that levity that we used to kind of get us through all of those thoughts, like racing thoughts, to where our minds could have gotten away from us, and we might actually have a 9 of Swords instead of an 8. We are still in the 8, so it's a little bit better circumstances than the 9. But we still got a little bit of this shapeshifter energy lingering, and with the sobriety of the Saturn ruled sign of Capricorn, and a full moon being a culmination energy, it's sort of like the heaviness and the realization of like, okay, the levity is nice, but where is it time to be more serious? Where is it time to weed things out? Where is it that we need to make changes to imagine the life we want, and perhaps somewhere else? And so here we are, I suspect, in our cave, thinking of emerging, but still sort of like trying to orient ourselves into this new reality, but still aware that we've got the energy of the shapeshifter and the magician at our disposal, because the magician is also, like, you might look at it as the energy of Hermes and Mercury. Like, it's a clever, it can manifest, and when in the right vibration, having done the work, that Saturnian slow process, the sort of like going within that the winter sort of forces upon all of us. When you come out in the spring, you tend to have a renewed outlook based on all of that time of reflection And such short days, you kind of have a better idea of what you want to do with this energy, and it sort of takes you out of this barely sustainable juggling act that you find yourself in, and you can escape the bounds of your own making in your head and actually use these tools at your disposal. And like the card says, the shapeshifter energy isn't a bad energy. It's just it has to be focused, because without the discipline and doing the work and going within and knowing what it is that you want and won't tolerate, if you jump right into this energy, it's people pleasing, it's duplicity, it's the more negative manifestations of Gemini. It's sort of like the mischief and like sort of playing both sides just for almost like the mental stimulation, just the trickster playing this side and then like putting on the mask and playing this side just because you can, like the cleverness of it. And so we all know that that's not the way to get to where you want, and that might be something that you have had to resolve within yourself. Usually it's not our attempt to be duplicitous or our attempt to put on a mask. What we're really trying to do when we're masking is we're just trying to like figure out what it is people want from us and to be that. And it's funny because someone, if you kind of confront them with that and you're like, why are you being duplicitous? Like, I think a lot of people might be taken aback. Like, they think that they're doing the right thing. They think they're just trying to please you. I thought that this is what you wanted. And somebody else might go, well, what I wanted was for you to be genuine. I thought you were being genuine. I thought you were bringing all of who you are to this friendship or to this like relationship or to this group dynamic. And so I think it's important to remember that like when we do try to take the shortcut and like don't go within and don't have the confidence, like when we don't have the confidence to weed things out and to not tolerate what we know we don't deserve, we find ourselves just playing these parts, like jumping in and out of these parts. And not only does that leave us feeling resentful, but it's like you're not going to attract the people that you want in your life being like that. Like, I think most people want to believe they are part of something real, whether it's a one-on-one romantic relationship or a friendship. They want to believe that the interaction with you is real and genuine, and that they're not just getting pieces of you. So I kind of get that energy like collectively a lot, like people really trying to pull from deep within, like I guess you might even call it like shadow work, like trying to integrate parts of themselves that like they thought that they were supposed to hide, and realizing that like who they are is so much richer and whole, when instead of like kind of crushing down something that you think is not desirable or not acceptable about you, you realize that that's just part of you. Like, instead of being the person that tries to figure out what other people want, maybe just going deep within, pulling that shadow out, like pulling those things out from the shadows that you thought you had to bury deep within the cave. Like the card said, like, consider the cave within the cave. I think that that's what that's talking about. What would the cave within the cave be? I think it would be like the part of yourself that you shove even further back, and that when you emerge from the cave, you try to pretend like you're bringing with you, but really it's just something that you've like, you might say, like buried deeper, like suppressed deeper, coming out thinking that like the coast is clear, but you're really not supposed to have a cave within the cave, I would say. I think you're supposed to reach as deep as you can and pull out everything you can find, and like don't be scared of what you find, and find a way to integrate it. Give people a chance to accept all of you for who you are, and think of the like lightness that could bring to you, to be able to bring all of you to wherever you go. it's, I don't know, kind of going back to this. Bloom wherever you are planted. I guess the only way to really do that is to bring all of you everywhere, because in order to be truly adaptable, there are parts of you that you might have tried to bury deep, and then you find yourself going somewhere new and you're like, wait a minute, I think those parts of me might be really helpful. As it turns out, all the parts of me are there for a reason. If I'm to succeed wherever I'm planted, I better make sure I bring all of myself wherever I find myself. So let's see what this underlying alchemy energy of coagulation is about. I think this was in the cozy card pool reading I did indoors a couple weeks ago. But I don't remember if it was the underlying or if it was one of the ones that we actually pulled. So, coagulation, solidity, adherence, stuckness. Coagulatio is the great alchemical operation of Earth. By way of this operation, we experience that which was fluid churning into a solid formation. The formerly disparate ingredients begin adhering together into a fixed and solid unit. The result is visible, reliable, and eventually concrete. When you hear the phrase, "it is finally taking shape," coagulation is underway. The shadow aspect of coagulatio is that the elements may have come together without much awareness, and in turn they become unconsciously attached. Inertia and resentment set in. The parts can no longer separate, even if they wish to. Many long-term relationships have coagulatio aspects, a naturally occurring codependency by which both parties feel unseen or unknown as individuals. The work of coagulatio is to experience the merging with other while not losing oneself in the mush. Go deeper, look at the sculptures of Louise Nevelson. When this card appears, the alchemist must discern whether the earth element is helping or hindering the work. Is the attachment one of benevolence or convenience? Sulfur and lead are agents of coagulatio. Take note if these cards appear in the same reading, as it would indicate an advanced state of stuckness. Well, we don't have the cards sulfur or lead out here. We have gold, but I will say that Saturn is associated with lead. And so when I'm looking at like the energy of this Capricorn full moon, and I'm considering, again, ruling archetypal energy of Capricorn's ruler of Saturn, you might find wherever Capricorn rules in your chart, and given everything we've gone over here, and the struggle sometimes with truly integrating all the parts of yourself, having enough courage to bring all of you out to play wherever you go, you might say, you might have encountered a bit of rigidity within yourself. I understand this very much when it comes, because, this card is asking us, what role is the earth energy playing? Like, is it helping or is it hindering? And I've had to have this talk with myself too about, especially if you've had to be like steadfast before, and if like you've ever found yourself having only yourself to rely on, or having to be the most stable person in the room, or having to be the most steady, or having to be the most grounded person, or just looking at your chart. Like, I often can see charts where it's like a lot of earth energy. The good side is that like you can always steady the ship. Like, you're the person, the captain to have at the helm. If shit hits the fan, bring in your friend with all the earth energy. Bring in your Capricorn friend. Every Capricorn knows this. They're the ones that everyone turns to when shit hits the fan, and then they're also the ones that everyone's like, why don't you loosen up? And that's kind of, that's sort of like the double-edged sword of it all, because we need the Saturnian, like we need the structure and the discipline of Saturn. But that's why it's such a difficult planet to wrestle with, because skating that fine line is like, it should feel like a lifelong thing. Like, what is the balance, and when it comes to like steadfastness and like reliability, groundedness? At what point does that become rigid? Coagulation, at what point does it become stuckness? At what point does it not allow you to go and bloom wherever you are planted? It's hard to bring, it's hard to shake off a part of you that has been essential for your survival. And I really like these cards because the whole idea is that you don't have to like shake off anything. Like, you're not supposed to discard any parts of yourself. You're supposed to integrate them, and like it's this constant process, like this constant rotation, and like eventually you become more and more refined. And to not look at it as sort of like a one and done thing, and that you've mastered the energy and that you can move on, because then you end up in an overcorrecting energy, and then you just become like chaotic, and you're like, oh, that was the old me, and I just fly by the seat of my pants now. And then again, that's another way to become distorted, to realize you've been swallowed up into something else that you don't recognize. So this, I think, is asking us if where we are is something that is this like a natural pattern? Like, are we stuck in a way that even if we go into the cave and we like do this inner work with our moment of awakening, and then we come back out and we look at our table as a magician, and then we like create a new sort of path for ourselves, is it our regular pattern to always end up in the stuckness? Like, maybe this time around, I can't help but think that like the energies, especially with like Pisces being so strong of an archetypal theme this whole year, and the formlessness of Pisces, and like the sort of growing pains that it has come with emotionally, maybe if we can take away anything and leave a pattern behind, it will be this stuckness. Because I think what it ends up being is you're really just clinging. There's like a piece of like the past that you want to bring with you. Like, even if you try on a new life, you're like, oh, that was the old me, and then you jump into this thing that looks totally new. Have you actually worked on like this inclination, like the inclination to be like, okay, everything looks good here, all those old people I've left behind, all those people that I've like attributed like all my unhappiness to, they're in the past, but you're still, wherever you go, there you are. Like, do you have maybe a bigger part that you're playing that you're not acknowledging in a pattern of codependency, where when you get to a place that feels safe, you sort of snap back into a pattern that is setting you up on the same timeline, it just with different surroundings. So don't trick yourself. Don't I don't know if I say trick yourself. Don't cheat yourself of the opportunity to really like, this is probably like the hardest part for a lot of us, is like when things get really bad in a certain place, if we just like sort of discard everything and just like jump somewhere else that looks totally different, we're like, oh, look at me, I'm succeeding, I can bloom wherever I'm planted. But like, you haven't done this. Like, have you gone in the cave? Like, have you found the temple within? Are you relying on like money or like distractions just in a new place with something shinier and better and different than like what you left behind, just so you can eventually slip back into this? This is like really where the work is, I find, is like what happens when you get the new surroundings that make you feel like you've left all the problems behind. Like, what part do you play in reaching a point of stuckness? Like, are you avoiding like carrying the lessons with you, like, because arguably if you've really done the work and found the temple, this is kind of like, whereas the cave can be more like, this is sort of like the hermit card in tarot. You go into the cave and like you do your inner work, and then you eventually do emerge and like bring this let this shine a little brightly and bring it out into the world. But like, I might say that like the temple, you just should be like sort of a thing you permanently adopt going forward wherever you are. If you always have this, you might say, then you could avoid this whole process of having to go back here over and over, having to have this and then having to go back here and then having to find yourself here again. So maybe this is the thing to integrate. What is sacred to you? Like, without feeling confined to like what was taught to you growing up, without being like confined to even like some institutionalized idea of what's sacred. You can create your own temple. And that's why I really like the advice in the book about like making a little altar of found objects, like maybe seeing nature as your temple, and like going outside and connecting with your natural surroundings, and just like don't overthink it. Pick up beautiful little pieces of like, fallen branches with like lichen on it, and pretty leaves with different gradients of color that you think are pretty, or like, especially that's why the beach is such a great place, because you can find all these like objects of different textures and sorts and shells and driftwood and seaweed, and don't overthink it, and just collecting these things and creating something beautiful, and realizing that you did all that without leaning on like money or other things that might give you this false sense of like security. And so maybe the temple is sort of like a larger theme here in terms of what we want to integrate, because think about how powerful this is when you bring this with you, and think about how powerful this gift of shape-shifting for the greater good, like being adaptable, doesn't have to mean being duplicitous, like, because if you always have this with you, it's sort of like your safeguard, sort of like reminding you of like why you're here using your gifts, like and then arguably you won't even be in this kind of energy anymore, and you probably won't be here like working alone balancing two measly little pentacles, because you actually are meant for more. So we're gonna finish up with seeing what this gold card has to say. I have a feeling that this is going to be a really nice energy to end on, given everything we've just sort of laid out. Let's see. Gold. Illumination, splendor, culmination. The alchemist's gold is no ordinary gold. It is not found in rings or coins or necklaces. It is a substance buried deep within, sometimes referred to as gold of the wise, philosophic gold, the ethereal stone, or the divine quintessence, among countless other names. For our purposes, we seek not the physical metal, but the mystical essence within each alchemist. How do we recognize it? It mimics qualities of the metal itself, soft and radiant, and its planetary counterpart, the sun, warm and bright. It's no wonder gold is associated with the heart. When this card arrives, there is something of incredible value at hand. It is marvelous and rare. Cherish it, get to know its properties and its source. The gold card carries a distinct shadow. If mistaken for a purely physical material, it can lead to greed and excess, causing the alchemists to lose their way. Reverence is the key. If you want to go deeper, read Robert Frost's poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay. In some wisdom traditions, gold is seen as a nectar, a sap, a honey-like substance coming from trees, bees, and even the pineal gland. Open yourself to gold's infinite sources. Your gold may be entirely different from someone else's. It is important for the alchemist to respect their own unique journey toward a righteous and resplendent goal. So, again, we had that mention of the heart, that sort of precious, divine quintessence within, and how it is associated with the sun and with the heart, and therefore the archetypal energy of Leo, which follows Cancer. And what's interesting, I don't know if you've ever contemplated the idea of solstice, and the positioning of Cancer, ruled by the moon. What makes Cancer and Leo special is that Cancer is the only sign ruled by the moon, and Leo is the only sign ruled by the sun, and all the others share. So, when you get to a Virgo, it shares its ruler Mercury with Gemini. When you get to Libra, it shares its ruler Venus with Taurus. When you get to Scorpio, its traditional ruler is Mars. Its more modern co-ruler is Pluto, but traditionally, it shared its ruler Mars with Aries, and Sagittarius sharing Jupiter with Pisces, and so on and so forth. So it's just that middle of the year where we have the two luminaries. And solstice itself, the summer solstice, marks, as you know, we have the longest day of the year. And then every day after that is one step closer. We have just a little bit less daylight. Every single day that passes, we get closer and closer to having more darkness than light. And so I really think it's interesting when I think of the balance of dark and light, and what the solstice, the straddle point, I guess, of the 6 months, the first 6 months of the year, and then that middle point, and then the remaining 6 months of the year, at least the calendar year, and how that really marks that's really the solstice energy. It's the daylight, and we sort of find our temple outside. It's the sun shines for so long, and you feel like this energy lasts forever, and it's warm, and but then it gets shorter and shorter and shorter, and we're almost forced back closer and closer to that contemplative Saturnian place. Before we know it, we're at Capricorn season, and at the moment of the winter solstice. So I just think that the concept here of starting with evaluating where we are, we come to the table with our 8 of Swords and our understanding to weed out what's not serving us anymore. Don't tolerate less than what we deserve. In the state of coagulation, and maybe contemplating how much of a role we might play, not even consciously in most cases, I would guess, of getting stuck, getting in these states of stuckness where we just feel like we find ourselves in these cycles, and then considering how we can use the energy of the river, the Cancerian waters of the season that we're in, and the slower pace. We're out of Gemini season, and I said this in the last video I did, where the good thing about having Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, now in Cancer, in the river, it's slower, and it's inviting us to consider how we feel. Your feelings are really valuable intelligence. the way you feel in any given situation or moment of your life that you're in is a really great starting point to then engaging your brain into making a plan for how to change that if those feelings aren't where you want to stay. And then having the courage and the maturity and the wisdom and the discipline of Capricorn, that Saturnian energy that rules Capricorn, having the discipline to like go within the cave, the darkness, and like sort of sit there and contemplate and rework, making sure we have this temple and that when we come back out of the cave, we've brought everything with us. And most especially this temple, and we carry it with us everywhere we go. So I think that this is a really nice follow-up actually to not only the Gemini new moon reading, but to the video I just did, The Old King is Dead, Long Live the King. I will never cease to be amazed at how like every time I sit down and I wonder what's going to come out, it's just so strangely cohesive. That's why I like using these different decks, because the way that they not only speak to one another, like the cards that do come out, but there's almost this like sense of continuity from like the last reading, and even from the last video that wasn't a reading, but still thematically seems to be present on the table here. So I'll go back to the advice of random Twitter users Granny and remind you, if familiarity mattered, water wouldn't boil fish. So don't be afraid of not really having a roadmap. And yeah, we like familiar things because we feel good at those. But guess what familiar things lead us to? Being stuck. So we want to get out of this energy from this Two of Pentacles, and we want to be here. I'm hoping the next reading we do, we're gonna have, and I just think it's interesting how these images sort of like seem to be speaking to one another. So I hope that we find ourselves somewhere closer as a starting point. Maybe our underlying energy will bring in these energies somehow. Maybe not literally, maybe literally. I mean, as it turns out, we had this reappearing, and then this from like 2 readings ago. So we'll see. Stay tuned. If you aren't already subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you went to the channel page and hit subscribe so that you can follow along on these readings, and as well as the videos behind the counter where we discuss astrology and like a bunch of other things, whatever else I can find to weave in that will speak to whoever you are, hoping that I've given you some new way to look at things. That's all I want to do. I don't want to tell you what to think. I just want to present something in a way that you might not have thought of it before, and give your brain something to roll around and use your own gifts to create your own novel approach with. So I hope you have a nice weekend, and use this Capricorn full moon energy to build for yourself what you want. Because remember, the time's going to pass anyway. So take care of yourselves. Until next time.